Hello everybody and welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope we're doing well, and today we'll be doing a box office preview for this upcoming weekend, which sees the wider release of the film Cyrano, starring Peter Dinklage. Of course, there's a lot of controversy surrounding him because of comments that he has made over the last month or so. We also have a new release in Studio 666, which, yeah, that doesn't trouble me at all as a Christian. But anyway, we also have the second weekend of Uncharted, as well as Dog, and we have the continued success of Spider-Man No Way Home, which is still in the top 3 discussion for the domestic charts. So we'll go ahead and dive into these numbers and more. Before going any further, though, please make sure that you smash that like button, light up that fire button if you're watching over on Odyssey, and also make sure that you are subscribed to the channel with that bell notification turned on. That way you know every time a new video or live stream goes live on the channel. So as you can see, it's the opening weekend, really, the wide release of Cyrano, as it was released in limited production, or limited release rather, in order for it to be, eligible for the Oscar contention. That award show that doesn't mean much of anything, by the way. The Raven Awards nominations are still being taken in, so if you want to vote and submit your ballot, check out the pinned comment below to get access to your ballot and submit what you think were the best and the worst of the year. But with all that being said, Cyrano ended up getting 1 Oscar nomination for costume design, so I hope it was worth moving up your film in that way. And yeah, very, very interesting decision to say nonetheless. But Cyrano opening up this weekend, again, actually, interestingly, only opening around 900 or so theaters, maybe a little over 1,000 by the end of it. As I said, very limited release here. Expected to make only $2.8 million, and on a $30 million budget, this film needs to make around $75 million worldwide to actually break even. And yeah, it's a very hard sell these days, I think, for a film like Cyrano, because for those that are not aware, and it's not really made clear in at least most of the trailers that I have seen, it is a musical. So it's a musical version of Cyrano de Bergerac, and instead of it being someone who has a very long or messed up nose, instead they decide to translate that character as a dwarf character, which I said from the very beginning when they first announced this movie. I was like, hey, that at least is an interesting take on the character, and it could work out for them. But then I found out it was a musical, and I was like, okay, now I feel like you're doing a lot of different things, maybe all at the same time, and I don't know necessarily if it's going to work out the way that you expect or the way that you want it to. I do plan to go see this film, so that way I can let y'all know if it is any good. Obviously, I know a lot of people in the comment section are going to be saying, hey, Peter Dinklage is kind of a tool, and I agree. I think he is definitely a tool, and a lot of people, even in the dwarf community, have spoken out against him because he has actually cost a lot of them some job opportunities because of the comments that he has made surrounding especially the casting of various peoples in Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, which is expected to be made by Disney, even though the characters are neither Snow White nor the Seven Dwarfs anymore. And so at this point, why not just make an entirely brand new story and just be done with it? But it's Disney, so they're gonna have to update it for the times, as it were, and we'll of course see the various success or lack of success for films like it. Uncharted, though, is expected in its second weekend to come in at number 1. Again, Cyrano in its new release expected to only make $2.3 million. Studio 666 is also a new comedy release featuring David Grohl of the Foo Fighters, so we'll see exactly what that's able to produce. Again, not really a fan of the name, personally. Again, I don't really like the satanic elements there, but it is expected to make $2.7 million at 2,300 screens, so again, not a very wide release, and so, in the end, for both Cyrano and for Studio 666, I would say that those numbers are impressive based on the number of screens that are available, especially when you compare Cyrano versus Studio 666, and just, again, Cyrano making more, even though it's at half the screens, or is likely and projected to be at half the screens of the prior, and one's a comedy and one's a musical. So we'll of course have to wait and see exactly what the film is able to actually do. But in this weekend, Uncharted is expected to once again take the top charts at the number 1 spot, making another $23.5 million. Of course, we always take these numbers with a grain of salt, because even though Box Office Pro has been one of the better sites as far as being able to project films. There's obviously the industry standard by which Deadline and Hollywood Reporter and all those others, typically all use. And again, it's based off of just there's a standard way in which they are able to track pre-sale numbers and social media interactions, etc. And so there is also, of course, the fact the studio will release their own metrics too. And so different studio experts will have different, ways, rather not studio experts, different media experts, box office covers. They will have their own metric in order to be able to cover that bit of news. Box Office Pro has their own metric as well, which definitely takes more so into account social media presence and things like that, which is why their numbers are usually different than what the studio is projecting, and it's usually a little bit higher than what the studio is projecting. They were very off, so I just want to put that out there. They were very off for Uncharted, which is the reason why, in my initial estimate, based on those estimates that they were given, because they have been right before when they have made guesses on big releases. In this case, they were not. I had said that Uncharted was likely to be a flop. I don't really hold that anymore because of the way in which it overperformed in the domestic opening. They had projected it to only make $30 million, and it made over $44 million in the 3-day opening, made over $55 million in its 4-day weekend with President's Day weekend. So Uncharted is expected to make another 23.5, dropping only 47%, bringing its total domestic number to around 85.1. So this is a film that is well on the way to crossing the $100 million mark domestically, is also well on its way to crossing to going well past the $100 million mark internationally, and probably even going to the $200 million mark internationally by the end of its run, which would mean that the film is definitely in a very good position to get very, very close to its break-even number, and rather set itself up at the very least by the end of this weekend for it to break even over the next couple of weeks. Dog also expected to do well in its second week of release, 41% drop, another $8.8 million, bringing its total to 29.6. And so again, another film that is on its way, it seems, to being able to break even and make some cash. Spider-Man No Way Home continues to make money with $6.1 million, bringing its domestic total to $780 million. Will it be able to get even closer to $800 million domestically? Again, insane times, and so much for that so-called pandemic narrative. Death on the Nile is really suffering a death in a lot of ways, even though it has a stronghold. Right, with only a 36% drop in its third week of release. It has only made $32.5 million, or is projected to have made $32.5 million by the end of this weekend, which is not very good. Jackass Forever is still hanging on as well, continuing to make profits on top of everything. And Sing 2, continuing, as I've mentioned in all the previous videos, also expected to make a lot of money. So Uncharted at this point in time has made $143.2 million. So again, this domestic number is expected to be around $87 million by the end of the weekend. And I would suspect that the international number is going to be well over $100 million. So that means that this film will definitely be around the $200 million mark or so by the end of the weekend, which puts it in a very, very strong position in order for it to, in the coming weeks, to reach its break-even point. As I've mentioned previously, this film needs to make around $300 million to break even, and so to be at around $200 million after 2 weeks is a very good position to be in. Dog has made around $20 million or so at this point in time, and because this film had about a $15 million budget or so, it has definitely put itself in a much better position to also have a better break-even point. Spider-Man No Way Home is up to, again, $1.832 billion. So again, it's going to inch ever so closer to $1.9 billion. And really, again, the question is, how much higher can it climb? If it's able to add another, 10 to 30 million in the next few weeks, every single week, it's going to get pretty close to it. So it'll be interesting to see exactly what that number is going to be able to do. But anyway, that is the box office preview for this weekend. What are y'all's thoughts? Again, here are some of the updated numbers for where Uncharted, Dog, Spider-Man No Way Home are doing in their day-to-day numbers. But of course, the big news is Uncharted doing much better than what many had expected. And films like Cyrano expected to not do very well at all. As I mentioned, the film cost $30 million, needs to make $75 million to break even, is only expected to make around $2.8 million. And even though that is very well based on the actual theater count itself, again, there's no denying that, we do still have to look at the actual numbers, and we're not really getting much of anything as far as what it's made so far. And if it is expected to only make $2 million or so in its opening weekend, needing to make $75 million, it's not looking very good for it to break even. But again, this is an odd release, to say the very least, and so we, of course, will have to pay attention and follow these numbers as they go along. But what are your thoughts about this? Let me know in the comment section down below. If you like this video, smash that like button, love that fire button if you're watching on Odyssey. You're all amazing and beautiful people. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and as always, God bless. And now for a huge shout out to all of my Patreon Subscribe Star and Locals members, starting off with Patreon animation commentator Brandon, let's go Brandon, Brian P., Christopher Bowman, Father Christopher Miller, hail to you, Father. Father Damian Cook, Fuzz Aldrin, Garrett Searles, Hannibal Grimm, Harold Francis, Hymir Ari Hymason, Inflamed Wood, Jacob Juice, Jeffrey Toon, Joe Horn, Jonathan Carney, Gomer Kyles 79, Laura, The Modern Major General's Story, Mike Jackson, Mad Mitch Dunaway, Mondo Spieler, Mr. Peabody, On to June, Orange Hat Reviews, Out of Step with Reality, Priscilla Hall, Rosetta Ellen, Stan Andrian, Teresa Martin, or Miss Martin Muses, Theodore Benden, Tina Bojan, and Tina B., the Empress of the Universe. Thank you very much for supporting me over on Patreon. Also to my Subscribe Star peeps, UAB Mad Dog, which is Mr. Mike Jackson, Storm Tracker, The R, Fast Reaction, Nosferatu Gatsu, Stand 4, John B., Mr. Roy, Glinzer, J. Alex McCarthy Jr., Dean Heiss / the new number 2, J-Rod the Beer Guru, and ZK-Man. And also a huge shout out to the newest members over on Subscribestar, TL John, Trent Johnson, and Matt317. Thank you all very much for supporting me over on the Subscribestar platform. And to my 3 local supporters, we got Kara Tharp, UAB Mad Dog, which is once again Mike Jackson, super supporter over there, and Robert Barnes. Thank you very much for supporting me over on the Locals platform. And if you want your name shouted out at the end of every live stream and video, please think about signing up on either of those platforms. You can find a link in the description below that will lead you to all of those different pages. It is known as the Willow link, as it is w.lo link, and it will have all the links to that, to the Discord channel, to all different kinds of places, including places to support me as well. At the Citizen of Asgardian level, you get Citizen of Asgardian level is how it's labeled on Patreon. Still need to fix that, but Citizen of Asgard level, you get a shout out at the end of every live stream and video. If you join at the Army of Asgard level, you also access to a giveaways channel, which is featured on the Discord that I have. I know, River, it is very exciting. It is so exciting, where you get giveaways for things like 4K titles, Steelbook titles, etc. Again, I got some 4K Steelbooks of The Punisher, for instance. I've got 4Ks of tons of other movies, so I'm giving those away all the time. So if that sounds interesting to you, join the Army of Asgard level. Also, at the Keep of the Bifrost level, you get all of that stuff, plus you get access to a once a month and maybe twice a month. We're trying to add an extra podcast in there of me and John the Flick Pick Flickinger, where we talk about movies, and also you get to ask your questions. Any questions that you want to ask, you get to ask with that podcast. And then you have the Chosen of Valhalla level, which gives you access to all of those, and also a once a month podcast where you get to be featured with me on the main channel. We all get to talk together about movies, culture, pop culture, anything really that the Chosen want to talk about, or anything the Chosen want to promote is on the table. So if you like that, join at the Chosen of Valhalla level. Also, during your first month of support, you get a free t-shirt. Any t-shirt that you want from the main store, you get access to, and I do ship internationally anywhere in the world. Anyway, you guys are all amazing and beautiful people. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, God bless.